The interactions between business leader and political leader is one of the most important features of APEC every year, and this time it's no exception. It is well understood that business leaders from around the world have already come up with their own suggestions to the political leaders and looking forward to the answer from the other party. And that's what the executive director of APEC, the APEC Business Advisory Council, told me right before the APEC CEO Summit. Let's listen in. Ken, what a pleasure to see you here in Papua New Guinea.
Very nice to be here. Lovely to see you.
The work this time is going to be very challenging compared to the beautiful weather we have over there.
We're in challenging times, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to meet challenges, to put our thoughts into some big issues and get some resolution. But we've met regularly over the year, and we've had many meetings. The messages to leaders are, we have to deal with this threat of protectionism. We have to roll it back, and we've progressed too far in international relationships over the post-war period on believing in open markets and investment flow. That's what APEC is about. The Bogai goals are about that. And when we start to reverse that, we're turning our backs on what APEC is about. APEC and ABAC is about. And the business community is really concerned that the pressures of protectionism that are rising for different reasons in different parts of the world, but globally they are rising. We've got to deal with it. We've got to say, look, there is a system of government, international government. There are international rules of the game. There is the WTO, and we've spent a lot of time building these institutions, and we've got to respect them. We've got to work with them, and when they're under threat, we have to defend them, and we've got to find ways of doing that well.
That is the key, isn't it? We've got to find ways to do that well before anything too devastating happens. But what are likely to be the ways? I mean, you've been talking to business leaders coming from various delegations within the APEC framework. Tell us, what are some of the things that people are playing with right now?
The first thing is to regain confidence in what I've just been saying, in the international order for economic growth and development and in openness in markets. We need to get people back again onto that track, and that's a job for governments and business. And we need to explain to our communities what is the benefit of globalization. Why has it? The fact is, it's created many jobs. It's created increased living standards. It's reduced poverty across the globe. And there have been massive benefits, but there is something of a jaundiced view now occurring that the spread of benefits have not trickled down far enough. Wages have stagnated across many major economies, and the working men and women are not finding the benefits that should come. A lot of it is looking at the WTO and the trading systems that we have, looking at new regimes that will open markets again, the RCEP and the FTAP. These are the new visions we have, that we've got to keep progressing thinking on open markets. Simply put, that's what we're about. But it's not that alone. What I've been talking about with communities being jaundiced about all of this is this lack of inclusiveness.
Right.
And in Papua New Guinea's year and in the last few years of APEC, inclusiveness is a concept we're developing. How do we bring in more people to benefit from this process of international openness and market development? And there are ways of doing it. For example, it is a question of why are wages stagnating across the region, across the Asia-Pacific region? How do we address that? How do governments and business address that? How do we raise, and the answer to that is increased productivity and growth. and more flexibility in labour markets, more flexibility and more mobility. The more reforms we can make on structural matters to open markets, to open competition, to get the threat of price competition coming through is a great process, and that's the key to doing a lot of this work. Second point is with the institutions themselves, the WTO. There are concerns, the United States has raised concerns about the WTO and the judicial system, the system of in the WTO to deal with disputes. We need to look at that. Why is that one major economy dissatisfied with that dispute system? Find ways to remedy the system within the processes of the WTO, not outside it. Not saying we can't deal with the WTO, but how do we deal with it within the WTO? Now those are big challenges, and I think the third big, I've mentioned two. The third one is really we're facing this benefit of digitalization and innovation. That's sweeping the world, and we see APEC and APEC particularly. We see this as a really important lever into inclusiveness. Right. How do we get broadband internet available to every citizen on this planet? How do we do that? It's simple. In a technical sense, it can be done, but we have to get the infrastructure in place. We have to have the vision of the regulatory environment to allow it to happen, to allow the free flow of information across borders, and all of that requires new thinking and adapting technology to serve people.
Many of the points you talk about can certainly have been well debated already, but the question is that the global debate, if not global trade conflict, is developing so fast that it does not even allow reasonable discussions anymore. People tend to be, or countries tend to be, very emotional.
Yes, I agree with that.
And therefore, how much do you think the reasonable discussions within the rooms right behind us are likely really getting into the global agenda?
We can't walk away from talking. We have to do it. We have to. Okay, it's getting people back to the table to talk in ways in which we can reasonably deal with issues. Walking away from the table, not having discussion is a disaster. You're in a sense you're blessing protectionism, because that's the way it will go if we don't talk about it. If we don't, as I said earlier, we are looking at FTAP, Free Trade Area of Asia Pacific. North Asia is looking at RCEP. We have to project these things. We have to move on them. People have got to make decisions to make them work, and that's within our capacity.
Ken, as you may know, for those in politics, there might be a very apparent big divide between them and among them about where trade should go. But do you notice parallel phenomena within the business community, or it's actually exactly the opposite?
I've got to say, we've looked at this. I've been observing this year, drafting the report that APEC will be presenting to its leaders. Yes. A lot of us have been working on this. And the words we've put forward have been accepted totally by the APEC business community. The 21 economists, business people here have accepted that.
You mean they are from developed economies, or from developing economies? Yes. They are from the least developed economies?
Yes, they're from,
They range from different sectors?
All the spectre of APEC, all represented by APEC, yes. The business community has said, look, we're in dangerous waters, we've got to move and get our act together. It's what we're saying to leaders, and we've got to do that.
Do the business communities usually, Ken, from your experience, I mean, you've been working with APEC for a long time, be able to have strong persuasive power over the years, this time particularly?
I think they will find it hard to govern well. these are important messages from people who employ people, who make the difference between a developing economy, a developed economy, a growth path of in high digits. Business people do that, and that's what's got to impress, hopefully, on leaders. And I hope they take that message.
Well, they think about the election cycle.
Yes, I know.
4 years.
Yes.
The most 8 years.
Well, I agree with that. But the election cycles, really, you can look at it in terms of creating a sense of optimism and futuristic development and progress, or that this is all too difficult and I'm going to go into protectionist mode. Well, you make choices between those two things, and good political leaders have got to press the buttons to make the right choices on that.
You see, trade conflicts, some even term it as trade wars, going on among some of the major economies in this region, in the Asia-Pacific region, and as a result in the world as well. To you, who has been researching about APEC and serving APEC for the past few decades, how would you assess that? Is it about geopolitics? Is it about how wealth is going to be shared for the future? Is it about ideology? Is it about political systems? What is it about?
I don't think it's. I don't see ideology as the critical. We have different governance structures within APEC. The world has many different governance structures, and ideology obviously is a driver of governance structures. So I have different ones. We can live with all that. It's the rules of the game that we create when we relate to each other, and we do that in a harmonious way, like through trade agreements or WTO or plurilateral agreements or multilateral agreements. It's governments coming together and agreeing there is a common good to do something to open markets. Basically, that's what it's about. I don't think there's not an ideological thing. The issue of rising nationalism, which I think is at the back of your question, comes from for many reasons, and whether that's ideology or the working out of politics is a good question. But the central point I think we stand for in APEC and ABAC is that what we've developed is worth a lot, and don't move away from it. It's central to our future. Just going to a point you made about sharing the benefit, I was going to add to this the point of digitalization and innovation through the internet and systems. This is a key. This is a key for Papua New Guinea particularly. We have to have the ability, the capacity, we'll soon have it, to have highest quality technology available. The question is access to it and the distribution of it and the pricing of it, so that people in villages across this country can benefit from it, can use it. Now, that takes some decisions by the government to allow that to happen. Politically, in a practical sense, in a business sense, it can all happen. It's a political judgment call now. How do we make it happen? Do we make it happen? And do we change our education systems to facilitate more access, more training for people, upgrading skills and so on? These are very simple things.
Human capital,
yeah, absolutely. These are things within the capacity of each government in APEC to do.
And the question is whether they have done it or not.
Well, some have. Some are doing it. Some are. We're on a road. We're in different stages of this. Here we need, in Papua New Guinea, I think the Prime Minister and others realize this need is a very urgent one. And you see now a drive for startups, for innovators, incubators within the MSME sector in Papua New Guinea, all on this drive to get spreading the use of technology.
With that, we're coming to the end of this special edition of World Insight, coming to you from Papua New Guinea on the 2018 APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. In the next few days, we're going to bring you all the latest information as well as exclusive interviews about where this region is heading for with our special program, APEC Time. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of my team here in Papua New Guinea and back in Beijing. Thanks for being with us, and bye for now.